ANA eLearning Academy is brought to you by CDN Graysheet, a trusted source of rare coin and currency valuations since 1963.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today for the ANA eLearning Academy. The ANA would like to thank our eLearning partner Graysheet for their support of the eLearning program. Today we have George Anastasopoulos, who will be presenting on standardization and quality control of ancient Athenian coinage. You will be muted for this presentation. If you have any questions, you may put them in the chat or Q&A box, and I will read them to George at the end of the presentation. Now I'll turn the time over to George for his presentation.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Logan. That's a pleasure to be with you today. And I'm going to present you about the standardization and quality control of ancient Athenian coinage. This is a study on the coinage standardization, quality control, and identification of fakes in ancient Athens. So the presentation is exploring the Athenian law on silver coinage and the material testing methodologies used on that time. The presentation is supported with inscriptions that they give us the historical evidence that we're going to talk about it today. So I would also like to present you in a more wide approach the logic of standardization in coinage, because the life is not only about coins, but it's about the general technology of that time. So we have to understand also and have a good knowledge of what were the standards used on material testing and standardization and quality control during that period. So when we say, let's start with some methodology first, that when we talk about standardization, we mean the process of making something to conform to a standard, whatever is going to be the standard. And then you may ask me, of course, what is a standard? How do you define the standard? So nowadays, a standard is a document established by subject matter experts and approved by an authority, usually is a regulator, that provide guidance on the design, use, or performance of materials, products, and processes. And that's what we talk about standards. And also when we talk about quality control, we mean that we develop a system of maintaining standards in manufactured products by testing a sample, a product, of the output against the specification. So somebody sets specifications, we test them against a standard, and then we say, yes, it is good or bad, fake or not, whatever. In addition to that definition of standard in metrology, which is the science of measurement, a standard is not a document, is not a process, but it is an object, a system or experiment that bears a defined relationship to a unit of measurement of a physical quantity. In ancient time, like in ancient classical Athens, we're talking in our presentation, historical standards, according to our modern metrology definition, were the standards for length, area, mass, weight, volume, time, and currency. So on the photo in my PowerPoint, you can see ancient standards for weight. They were the standardized Greek bronze weights, and they were found on, and you can see them, they can be found and you can see them at the Agora Museum in Athens. So two different of standardization. The first is the processes, standardize the processes, and the second is the standards as material standards used in metrology. In modern time, those are the definitions we use, but they are the same, exactly the same definitions and usage in ancient time. So from the point of view of the technology in ancient Greece, the technology was there and the definitions were the same as we use them right now in modern time. In addition to the technical standards, we have the monetary standards. So a monetary standards is referring to the set of monetary arrangements governing the supply of money on a region or a country or a state or whatever. So a wide variety of different monetary standards were used by different ancient Greek city-states, because we all know very well that in ancient Greece, we had many small countries, the so-called city-states. So each standard was based on a single unit, and usually it was the stater or a drachm, and all other denominations in the system would be multiples or subdivisions of that unit. And I will give you a specific example of a whole monetary standard in ancient Greece, especially the Athenian one. But before describing the standard, I would like to give you the logic how that standard was developed, the so-called, for example, the drachma, how it was developed. So before the period that people had the coins, and I'm talking about the period of 1000 and BC and older, the people used to exchange products, and one method to exchange was with metal. So they would prepare the raw metal in rods, and 6 rods that you see on the photo here, actually it was something you could grab with your hand. Six rods could easily be grabbed of bronze or copper, were called in ancient Greek language oveli. And from that word ovolos came. So the ovolos is one rod-shaped material, copper or rod. And when you grasp these 6 rods, then this is 1 drachma, because drachma is coming from the Greek verb drato, which means I grab. So you could grab the 6 rods. So the rods are the oveli, obols, and the 6 of them is 1 drachma. So it's 1 grab. So that's, you see that even the terminology of the money comes from the older usage of, let's say, pre-money, which was the method how the old people, that ancient people, were exchanging products. So on the top of this photo, you see those 6 actual obols, as you can see them today at the Numismatic Museum of Athens in Greece. Based on this ancient system of money, the Athenian monetary standard was developed. So you see here the drachma is 6 obols, exactly. It was the 6 rods. So 6 obols was the definition of drachma. That's why it was not 5, although the people were using, even in ancient Greece, the decimal system with 10 numbers. The monetary system was based on 6, because it was the much older tradition of the 6 rods that somebody could grab. So 6 obols is 1 drachma. And then you have denominations, and then you have the tetrabol, tribol, diabol, obol, and then also you have the higher units like 2 drachmas, that it was the didrachm, 4 drachmas, that it was the tetradrachm, and this is the most popular coin that everybody is used, the familiar with the Athens soul. The Athens soul, that it was 4 drachma, the tetradrachm, and that was defined as 17.2 grams of silver. And it was the much more expensive decadrachm, which is 10 drachmas. So everybody knows the tetradrachm, which was based, which was very popular, but the actual unit was the drachma, as it was defined as 6 obols. And then each obol was defined in 4 tetartimorions. Tetartimorions has actually 4 quarters. So 1 obol could be easily divided in 4 quarters, half and half of half. So that's why it was based on 4. So everything has a logic, and then we had even smaller coinage. When we say 17.2 grams and 1 tetradrachm, just for you that you are more familiar on the imperial system, we're talking about 0.6 ounces of silver. Now, as I told you, the ancient Greece was divided on many different smaller city-states. So the Attic standard was the one I just described you in Athens, which is that region on the map. And as we already mentioned, the main coin was drachma, and 4 drachmas. This was the tetradrachm, 17.2 grams. But that was not the only one. For example, some very common monetary standards of that period was the Achaean standard. Achaia is this region in North Peloponnese in the middle of Greece. And over there, they had a stater as a unit of 8 grams divided into 3 drachms of 2.6 grams each, much smaller unit. And then we have the Aegina standard. Aegina standard is a small island close to Athens, and it had as a monetary unit this very popular coin of, I presented you here, the stater of Aegina with the turtle. Okay, and the Aeginetian standard, the standard of Aegina, was based on the stater of 12.4 grams. And that was divided in half stater or a drachma, that was 6.2 grams. So 4 drachma was 24 grams. So 4 drachma, based on the Aeginetian standard, it was a more expensive coin. Attic standard, the Athens standard I explained to you, and then we had very popular Chios standard. The Chian standard is the island of Chios, this one, this island of Greece, close on the Asia Minor, with a standard based on 15.6 grams of silver, and the Milesian standard from Miletus on the area of where is Asia Minor here in Turkey. The city of Miletus was 14.2 grams. So you could see that many different areas, they had their own numismatic standard. Of course, the most popular was the Athens standard, and we will talk about it again later. Now, regarding the standardization, which is the process, as I described you, of setting up rules that they are accepted by government or regulators to make our life easier in the technical world. Here I am presenting you the first known historical standard. It does not mean that it was technically the first, but it is the first known now written technical standard, that it is described on a stele, on this piece of marble, on the 4th century BC, and it was found in Elefsis. Elefsis is a city very close to Athens. So this ancient inscription of the standard describes one of the most ancient standard models for specifications, technical specifications, for the composition of bronze dowels placed between the drums of the columns on the ancient structures. So this specification describes the chemical composition and the manufacturing process of those bronze fittings, and a part of them, which is called polio. I'm going to show you a photo in the next PowerPoint. And on that inscription, there is a wording that says, I'm going to read you in English, that the shape, hard bronze on the leaf into cylindrical dowels according to a particular sample. It describes the methodology. So those are the parts that the standard is describing. Those parts were used between the pieces of the columns to interconnect the 2 pieces of columns. The one is the empolio and B is the polos. So these pieces were put inside the marble to keep, to protect and provide stability on the column structure. The column was not one big piece, long piece of marble, but it was as much smaller cylinders that they were assembled. And then we could see the actual columns over here on the photo. And that specific standard was used in ancient time, and it was also used on the Telesterion of Elefsis, which was the building in ancient Elefsis that the Eleusinian mysteries were taking place, which is another story. I have another presentation for that, but it's not for today. So the chemical composition also, in addition to the manufacturing process on that stele, on that marble piece, we have a specific description about the chemical composition, which it was written as the copper must be produced in Marius, Cyprus, where that was a large commercial and metallurgical center in antiquity, and it is of 12 parts. 11 were to be copper and 1 tin. So in reality, it provides us the composition of 92% copper and 82% and 8% tin, which is a reasonable composition with very good properties for that application. So that was a standard. Standard means that it was used on all the types of this construction, and it provides the logic of systemic approach in quality, which means that which is the essential element of standardization. So we don't do different things every time, but we are consistent, and every time we follow specific technical rules. In addition to that, stele is this marble piece with some wording on it. There is another stele that it was found in Stoa of Attalos, that was the ancient market in Athens. And this stele goes back to 375 BC, and it is called the Nicos law of silver coinage. So this is another standard, another rule, not for construction material, but it is a standard for coinage, actually, a standard process. So if you are an engineer like me, you will call it a standard process or specification. If you are a lawyer, you will call it a law. Okay, so you can call it whatever you like, but in reality, it provides rules. And it provides rules in order to perform a process, which is the definition in the legislation or standard. So this inscription is largely complete. So we have all the information of the text. And it is the objective of this document is to provide a quality control on the Athenian money supply, regulate everyday retail transactions, and ensure the enforcement of contracts between merchants. So Nicos law, or standard, or call whatever you like, declares that approved Athenian silver coinage is to be accepted under threat of a severe penalty and provides for experts, the dokimastes, so-called dokimastes, the responsibility to assay, evaluate coins in periods. Periods is the port of Athens. Now, be careful. This standard, this law, it was not about the original coins that were produced on the Athens mint, that it was actually located in the center of the city. It was for coins that they were coming to Athens from the merchants, that because Athens was a commercial center of the ancient East Mediterranean, there was too much commerce and too many merchants coming on the port of Piraeus. That time there was no airport. It was all the business was going through the regular port, and they were bringing money with them. Now there was a big problem that who could say that those money are not fakes? So for this reason, the state of Athens established two quality control centers. One was in the center of city of Athens, in the Agora, and the second was in the port of Piraeus, because when the traders were coming, they could give money to buy things. So before they accept them, they had to go through this quality check. And the same was happening in the Agora of Athens, because they could not come through the port, but they could also come through the mainland Greece and bring money with them and go in the Agora to exchange, sell. They had to go through this check. So this rule, this law was developed exactly for the coinage that was an input, incoming coinage to the economy of Athens. So as I told you, the rule sets that there should be quality controllers, inspectors, who will do this job, and they call it dokimastes. And it defines their responsibilities as to identify and remove counterfeit coins from the circulation and give back whatever is good. So if the coin is good, then they give it back to the merchant and they could use it. Also, they could accept, as you will see later on, and it is described on lines 8 to 13, acceptable imitations. And I will explain you what is this. So the moment the coins are approved, they can be used by the sellers, the merchants, and if they are fake coins, counterfeits, they will cut them across. You can see the photo here, and then they dedicate them to the sanctuary of Kiveli, the mother of gods. So it could not be used for circulation, the fakes, they go for the gods. So you see here in two photos of an actual good coin and another coin that it was fake and it was cancelled. Now, the next step is how they did this quality control. So what method they did follow? They could follow two different approaches. One was based on the portable scales they had at the time, and the second was on experiential approach. I will describe you in the next photo based on skills that these controllers had, these inspectors had. So on the point of this, the scales they were used, they were using cutter weights. I did show you at the definition of the standard weights they were using. So there were standard weights to use on this scale. And they were incorporated on one section of the scale, and on the other section, they were putting the coin. So they could check the coin mass, and also they could check dimensions, although the dimensions were not critical, but they could give just an idea, but the mass was important. If the coin had the proper weight, it was considered authentic. And of course, it had to pass also the skill test, as I call it. And if they had the test, the coin was lighter, because it was either a silver-plated copper coin or heavier, whatever, it had to be considered as a fake. So this specific scale that was used, actually, it's not a scale found in Athens. It was later on in the Ottoman Empire in the same area. But from historians of that period, we know that it was like this. Now, the experiential methods I was talking, they were based on experience of the inspectors. And this authenticity control was using three different senses: sight, view, touch, and sound. Even we, the modernist engineer, were using these methods like sound, even nowadays, to identify cracks on materials. And we are using a much more fancy terminology. We don't call sound testing, we call it acoustic emission. And we are using sensors to get the sound of the cracks and so on. But in reality, it's the same logic. From your sound, you can identify, what is going on. So either you call it sound test or acoustic emission, whatever, is the same thing. So the experienced inspectors of the time, they could observe the coin to understand if it was real, silver or gold or whatever, or bronze. They could feel it with their sensitive fingers. They could hold in their hand and estimate weight in addition to the scale they had. And also they were leaving it to drop on a hard surface, and they could listen the sound. And from the sound, they could understand what was going on. So a combination of the scale, testing, touching, experience, sound, they could decide if it was real or a fake. So it is also written in Aristophanes' comedy, The Frogs, that the sound of authentic coins over there is described when they strike a hard face as kekodonismena. Kekodonismena means in Greek, proven authentic, but they are a ringing sound. So the sound of the correct silver coin was specific, and they were very well trained. They had the skills to understand it. Now, Nicos laws on silver coinage, if you read it, you can develop a flowchart, as I can say, that describe the process of approving a coin or characterizing it as a fake or an authentic. In this graph, and I'm not going to read, of course, everything, but I will describe you the process in general. There are decisions that they had to be taken by the experts, by the inspectors, and they are described on the gray boxes. And there are possibilities, what it could happen, and they are described on white boxes. So it could be different decisions they had to take. And they could also in italic see what would be the cost to individuals on the Athenian state. I would like also to inform you that this presentation can be provided to you if you want a copy. So if you like the graphs and you want to carefully study them, you don't have to spend your time here. I know it is difficult on the screen to do it, but you can ask a copy of the presentation. There is my email on the bottom of each screen. So I will be happy to provide you a PDF after the presentation. Feel comfortable to ask for it. Now, As I told you, I mentioned that the Athenian coinage was the most popular, so it's not my opinion. Okay, this is based on historical and archaeological findings. In this table, you can find information based on hoards of coins that they were found by archaeologists in different areas of Athens in the market, and they could see that they were not only Athens and other cities. You could see that there were many different coins were circulating all over the ancient world, which actually the ancient world was the Mediterranean region. And you could see that the Athens was one of the most popular coins. Then it was the Syracuse coins, Aegina, and so on. So this data provides exactly the information to understand what were the more popular and widely used coins on that period. Now let's proceed on what the Nicos standard describes as classification of coinage. So the rule, the standard, provides a very specific classification of the outcome of quality control. So the inspector is getting the coin with the methods that we described. He is deciding something. And this something can be 7 possible ways, possible outcomes of the inspection process. The first one is that the coin can be a prototype. Prototype means that it is a coin issued by the Athens Mint, and it is original, state issued, and in this case are the rare silver owls, which is the optimum situation. Another option would be to have an artistic imitation. Medallions are they were calling. They were clearly distinguishable from the prototypes, and they may have different functions. So medallions could be used not only for commerce. Actually, they were not used for commerce, but for other applications. For example, they were putting coins on the mouth of the dead. So in many cases, they were not putting the actual coins. They were putting copies of coins. Or they could use medallions as presents in many different situations, celebrations, and so on. In general, those coins were not so valuable as the real ones, else they will use the real ones. So there were imitations they were using for specific purposes. They were not fakes from the point of view they wanted to steal money from somebody else, but they were used for other applications that they were essential for the life on that time. A third category was the official plated and debased coins that were official. And this is interesting because even the Mint of Athens, there were situations that they could issue plated bronze owls. And this was happening mainly in emergency wars. For example, on the Persian wars, that they needed money. And then later on the Peloponnesian War, so the war between Athens and Sparta, they need to have big quantities of money to finance war expeditions and so on. In that case, it was allowed under permission of state to issue bronze coins that they were silver and whatever, silver plated. So these coins were used for circulation during the crisis period, the war period, but they were not accepted later on. So, but still, probably some of these coins were circulating already. So if during that control, the inspectors could identify that they had that official plated coins, they would remove them from circulation. The fourth category was anonymous imitations. That were real copies. They were close copies, and maybe at the margin they mean difficult. It was difficult to distinguish from the prototype. Now, anonymous imitations, in many cases, they had a correct amount of silver. So in that case, they could be accepted. And the reason you may ask me why to make an imitation of a coin and don't use the original coin. And that had to do with the lack of availability of the required quantities of official coins, especially on cities far away from Athens. So if somebody wanted to have a state needed to have Athenian coins, but they didn't have many, they could make their own without stealing on silver, just they were copies. So these copies could be accepted by the inspectors under conditions. Then there were the marked imitations. Marked imitations were very, again, close copies to the prototypes, but there were some symbols on them that they would indicate that they were not issued from Athens Mint. Again, those coins in most of the situations, they had the appropriate amount of silver and they could be accepted. Then there was the perfunctory imitations that they were not close copies in any sense, and they were, in most of the case, were not accepted. Also, the counterfeit, plated, and debased coins that they were privately manufactured actually to steal through the process of commerce and to deceive the consumers, and they were withdrawn. It is also these coins, as I told you, that they destroy them and send them to the temple. So all these cases were found even today on the excavations in Athens market. So here I am presenting you 6 cases of those categories, prototypes from Athens. It's 1 and 2 good prototypes, and number 3 is an official plated coin that was issued by the Athens Mint, but it is not silver, it is silver plated. Marked imitation, probably from Egypt, is on number 4. Perfunctory imitation, a fake one from probably Palestine, is on 5, and a counterfeit plated and bad imitation is probably from Babylonia, and it is on photo number 6. And also I'm putting the references for them, so if you want to search about them. So the process of the standardization and check of the quality control could have some specific outputs as we describe them, and as they are clearly defined on the Nicos standard. And this is the matrix of the inspectors, and the mandatory action they had to take is provided in the bold letters, and the consequences in the italic. So let's see the 4 main categories that they are described in the process of this standard. The first was for a coin to be accepted, characterized as good. And if it is called Athenian, in Greek it was Atikon, this means that it was a good silver coin that it was issued by the Athens Mint. It would remain in circulation. It is certified and approved. They use the word dokimon. Dokimon means that it is acceptable. It is certified and approved, and it is mandatory to be accepted. So as long, mandatory by whom? By the consumers, by the traders. So it is the best situation of the outcome of the inspection. In the second case, the Nicos law explains that the coin could be characterized as xenikon instead of atikon. Xenikon means xenos in Greek is the foreign. So it is a coin that was not minted in Athens, but still it can be a good coin, silver coin. So instead of dokimon, they use the word kalon. Kalon means in Greek good. So it is certified as good coin. So it is returned to the owner. Although it is minted outside of Athens, it has the appropriate quantity of silver. It can remain on circulation, but its acceptance is optional by the consumers. The consumers can say, I'm not sure, I don't know, but still it's not illegal. It can be used. The third category is again Atikon, which means probably from Athens region, Athens Mint, but it is bad. It is not a good one. And probably it is one of these coins made during the wars, that the inside is bronze and only it is outside plated silver. So in this case it is cut, confiscated and dedicated to the temple of the goddess Kiveli. It is removed from circulation and it is considered unacceptable. As I told you, even if it was issued by the official mint, this was done during the war. It should not be allowed to circulate during the peace period. It was deceiving the consumers. And the last big category is the xenikon, foreign again, and bad, not good. It is a fake, a typical fake. Again, it is cut, confiscated, and dedicated to the temple of the goddess, and it is removed from circulation as unacceptable. So this is an example that how the actual law looked like. So this is the original text in ancient Greek, and I have the translation for you over there. I'm not going to read everything, just an example to understand a little bit, get a feeling how an ancient standard was written. And you say Athenian Atticon silver coin shall be accepted by all sellers of goods when A, it is found by the approver, the inspector, to be solid silver, and B, it has the public stamp. And then the public approver, the inspector, shall sit between the tables, the bankers' tables in the Agora, and approve coins on these terms every day, except when there is a deposit of money, state revenue payment, in which case he sits on the council building. It is very detailed even where they were sitting. And then it goes on, describing all the process I explained you before. Now you may ask me, who is this guy Nicophon, that this standard, this law took his name? So it is the name of the person who is referred on line 2 of the stele of this inscription, that it was this law, this rule was decided after his suggestion. And the archaeologists, the historians had the problem to identify which Nicophon was him, because actually there were 14 historically known Nicophons who lived during that historical period. Actually, the historians believe that the most likely candidate is Nicophon Timagenus Timakievs, who was a member of the Vouli. Vouli was the parliament of ancient Athens in the period of 367 and 66. It was 2 years before, 1 to 2 years before this law was voted, and is listed as having dedicated also some dedications to Athena in another inscription of 368 and 67. So he was member in the parliament. He was exactly the appropriate period. He had the name, so he is the most probable candidate. There are some more candidates. I'm not going to read all of them. People who were also lived during that period and who were involved in the public management of Athens. But the first case is the most popular. Now, another PowerPoint I would like to present you is I'm talking about the Agora and about the Athens market, and you may always wonder how this ancient market looked like. So here is a representation, artistic representation, based, of course, on historical facts of those buildings who are actually leftovers of them are still in ancient Athens, how the Agora, the ancient market, looked like. It was exactly the place that there was the mint of Athens, and also how the people were exchanging products, goods, and people speaking, the politics, whatever, and it was a place of action. The building of Agora, the ancient Agora, it is, as you can see now in Athens, it is this one. It is based on the old building, and from pieces of the old building, they rebuilt how it looked during the time. I could say that that's probably one of the first historical malls of human history, because this building has inside, if you go inside, it has many smaller rooms. It is 2 floors with smaller rooms, and in each room it was a different shop. So going to this Agora building, Stoa Atalu, as it is called, it is, you can see how the ancient market looked like a modern mall. So here you can see a reconstruction of the whole, all the buildings that they are used, that they were existing that time. So this building, the Stoa Atalu, it is this one, which it is fully reconstructed. From the rest of the buildings, there are just only some leftovers. So it's not all of them there. And this temple is also existing if you visit now, and you can find it. Some buildings are there, some buildings are not. But the best reconstruction is the actual Agora building. Here is a picture of somebody giving money, coins, to buy a product in ancient market. And here you can see some of the coins that they were actually found on that area of ancient Athens. So this, I think, concludes my presentation. I hope we gave you a good understanding of the Athenian law of identifying the fakes, the standards that they were using on that period, and the quality control process, and the inspectors, the evaluators who were involved in this process. I will be happy to reply to any questions, if any.
Thank you. Again, we do have one question, but if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A or the chat, and I will read them to George. What would a tetradrachm be worth in today's money? I'm not sure how to pronounce that one.
Sorry, I couldn't understand the question.
It's tetradrachm. What would that be worth today in today's money?
Okay, you cannot compare the value of that coins to today's money. It's not about inflation. It is a totally different logic of using them. Okay, so it's you can say, for example, that the only feeling you can have is that, considering that the ancient tetradrachm was 17.2 grams, you can say that probably this on the value of the metal, it's something like $20 today, okay, the tetradrachm. But this is only just, it is just value of the silver on the coin. In that time, also, they had inflation, they had many different also parameters we have in the modern economies, and actually the inflation was reflected how? As we would see, the monetary systems were evolving. They were issuing again tetradrachms, for example, in Egypt, the Ptolemaians and so on, during the Hellenistic period, with less silver inside. So in reality, the same 4 drachma had less value because of the inflation that was reflected of less quantity of silver. So if we can say now that 1 ounce of silver today is, I don't know, $30, whatever it is, 25, I'm not sure that. And this is 0.6, I could say that 1 tetradrachm could be $15, $20, something like this. But the value of money of modern time, it's of course totally different from what was on that time.
Perfect. And we have another one. I was fascinated by some of the ancient steles and the translated quotes from them. Are the full text available online anywhere?
I think that a good Google search with Nicos law, if you make a Google search in Nicos law, you can find it. It is public domain documents, okay? So I just give an example how it looks like, but you can find the actual text by Googling Nicos law.
Perfect. I don't think we have any other questions, so thank you again, and thank you to Graysheet for supporting this e-learning program. We hope to see you all on some more e-learning next month. You all take care.
Thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, and take care. Goodbye.